email saying, "Here you go, babe." And I'm like, "Why are you up?
Why are you awake right now? Why is life happening?"
Exactly. Why are you
All right. So we're here to talk about Streetcar Named Desire and reclaiming this theatrical canon.
Yes.
And this should be rather fun. So today we have as our panelists, you have Anya Neville, my lovely sister, Mark Briner, who is everything extraordinaire that I know up in the Baltimore area. Yeah, I can embellish. And then there's Jeremy Jackson, who I think I just drag her from show to show to show to show. And then the ever so talented Shakespearean man who is running the West Coast California thing to the ground, Jordan Oliveira Verde. We all know him as Demetrius, but that's where we're going today. So again, it's just having conversations about Streetcar, and I just pulled one quote that I kind of like, and it kind of also fits because it's also, I don't know, but what is straight? A line can be straight, a street, but the human heart, oh no, it's curved like a road through the mountains. And I'm assuming, because I don't know, Blanche said that. Do I know? Do we know? Or is it just Tennessee Williams that said it? Okay, we're just gonna let that go.
I don't think that's actually in the play. I think it might be
recognize that at all.
Might be a quote from the author.
Okay, could be.
Yeah, it's a Tennessee. I think that's him.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so, and I'm just gonna flip through these rather quickly, and then I'm gonna turn it over to you guys. But as I was looking up stuff about Streetcar, I went back to, original times.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, the iconic.
Yeah, and then there was this movie, which I'm like, wow.
Yep.
I know those faces.
Actually, this was filmed. It started out as the Broadway revival. It's the only live version I've ever seen of the show, and Lang and Baldwin were so overpowering and amazing that they decided CBS wanted to move it to TV. Interesting thing though, camera, stage, live. Jessica Lange, my favorite actress of the generation, a little underwhelming. Baldwin was animalistic on stage. He was everything you want out of Stanley. Flip it to the screen, Miss Lang was heartbreaking. The close-ups, she owned that version. She is maybe, I could make a point that she could be a quintessential Blanche, but I could make a point for half a dozen others also. And she was a little over top of him, but live was an entirely different dynamic, and it was a fact that just made me understand so much about acting for stage, acting for screen. Not the same thing whatsoever. But
such a huge, ginormous, difference, and that's where I think a lot of like television and film actors make their mistake, is thinking they're going to jump in. And I don't know how much live theater Jessica Lange had done in a while or something, but
yeah, it had been she'd been pretty much Hollywood. She'd done Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, but that had been like maybe 10 years earlier.
Oh wow.
And,
yeah, how was she in that? Do you know?
She was good. Yeah, that was actually, I rented that at Errol's. It was on that long ago, but yeah, she was excellent. She's she is just a quintessential actress. She's got the chops. Oh God, the fragility.
Got the chops to play Maggie for sure.
Right. Fragility of her Blanche was just. I just watched this a couple weeks ago out of the blue for no good reason.
All right, so now y'all got me. I'm gonna have to watch it. So then in 2012, Broadhurst Theater in New York did an all-black version.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, right.
I find it. She's married to the fine one, Boris Kajo.
Yeah, Nicole Parker.
Yeah, Allie Parker.
Right.
Yeah.
Ari Parker.
Ari, yes.
Nicole Parker.
I shockingly didn't know she could act this well to be up against Blair, but that's just
so this
Just jump in, Jordan. Don't let us monopolize.
Yeah, don't let us monopolize. Say something, brother.
Well, I got to see this one.
Oh,
Oh, please tell.
Please.
Tell.
No.
And
But they don't know. Yeah.
And kind of what Mark was saying earlier about the way that things translated. I kind of felt that kind of way, generally speaking, about the cast, because as you can see, this is all TV and movie actors. Right. Well, except for Daphne Rubin Vega, who is, she was in Rent. But so.
Wait a minute, that's Daphne Vega from Rent?
Yeah, that's her.
Now that you said
it. That's her.
Yeah.
Wow.
Who put her as Blanche? I'm sorry, I'm gonna call it.
No, she's
Stella.
Oh, okay. I was about to say, whoa.
Yeah.
Oh no.
She's Stella. But she was probably the strongest on stage.
Okay.
I mean, as great. I mean, we all respect the man here, but he is very much so a film actor. So trying to bring that gravitas that Stanley requires. I mean, he's like Mr. Smooth, you know what I'm saying? So it just didn't exactly translate as well as it could.
He wasn't able to take the class out of himself far enough to be able to be in the dirt. Because in that role, you gotta be in the dirt and be okay with being in the dirt.
Exactly. And you gotta be sweaty and non-apologetic and vulnerable and just stripped down to nasty.
Yep.
Just the nastiest human being that you ever would not want to meet. That's who that is for me.
Right.
I think the thing with Daphne, she has spent her whole entire career trying to not be Mimi. She spent her whole career saying that I am not this
a one-trick pony. I'm not a one-trick pony.
And I hear she's given fever in the Heights. I hear she's giving it in the Heights.
Oh, good.
Because finally, it's kind of like an FU to not putting me in the movie, but here I am in the Heights.
Girlfriend, she was pregnant. She was like 8 months pregnant. There was no way she was going to be in Rent.
And she's giving mad kudos. But see, you can still be mad about it, Jeremy. You can still
heck yeah,
getting that phone call.
Oh, heck yeah.
So here's another one that I found, 2018 Boston Court Performing Arts Center in LA. Blanche was the only character who was not a POC in the cast.
Right.
Interesting.
The one I saw, because my narrative, my entire career, my entire life is like, why can't we mix it up? So this one for me,
you saw that.
Yeah, this one for me came with a lot of backlash. A lot of folk were upset about this production. Go figure. But here we are, 2021. So really, are we surprised? No. But people were really upset about the interracial sisterhood thing, when in reality, you could have a sister that looks like this.
Well, you know what I'm going to say?
Say, girl.
I'm going to say that because Blanche is she's clinging to that quintessential Southern. And tell me the girl's name again, because I always forget it. The wife, Stella. Because I don't know why, it just went out of my head, but because Stella's a fantastic character, but because Stella is that, when you conscientiously cast and you're going to put a Black woman in Stella's giving you vibes of I'm tired, I'm carrying all this on my back. And then you're going to put a white woman in the Southern Lily type role. You're going to have people who are going to come and that's what they're going to see and get angry about, rather than people who are going to come and see the relationship between the two women. Potentially, that's what just first came off the top of my head. I was like, okay, I don't think people should have hated on it. They should have given it a chance.
Right.
But I do think that that's the undertone that I see just even looking at the picture. But I'm like, well, dang.
But this is the conversation that we're having today. Why can't this be?
It depends on it really depends on the actresses, because if you cast the wrong actresses to do this, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get this Southern white thing over this Black, thing, and then it's not going to come off right, I think, in my opinion.
And a director who can guide this the way it needs to go.
Right, because it could be a sisterhood if you break it down correctly.
Yeah.
But it's got to really be broken down. These actresses got to go from the base and then build it back up with something that's a little bit different, keeping in mind you're playing against that stereotype.
Right.
It's true. Well, I have another stereotype to throw at you.
Uh-oh.
For Current Productions 2019, the first ever genderqueer actor as Blanche Dubois.
Now that gives so much. And when I saw this morning, I actually was digging it. I was like, ooh, juicy. That's ooh, yes. That's
you can do that. You can do this and it can work. Like just looking at the picture to me.
So, and I think that's as far as I'm going to go with that. So I'm going to stop share, but yeah, y'all can go ahead and now that I've brought up all these lovely questions, go for it.
Well, actually, interestingly enough, I have one more.
You do?
Oh, sweet. Okay.
Okay, and it begs to, it opens up a whole nother conversation, because there was also one last production that was very problematic to me personally. And I don't know if you can see it, but everybody in the cast was not POC except for Stanley. And I think that was a whole other kind of
I saw that picture.
Yeah.
Right.
I saw that picture, but I couldn't find anything written about it. So I'm glad you pulled that up.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's what I think the problem. I think the problem with placing Caucasian actors in a mixed cast in those type of roles, that's what's going to come up. That's the thing that's going to be under there.
Yeah.
It's the thing. Yeah. Now, I'm not saying people shouldn't do it, because it's good to explore it and do it and put it out there. But you have to know that is what's some people sitting in the audience are going to be uncomfortable because of those type of issues that are going to come up.
Exactly. Well, generally speaking, I think I agree with you up to an point. I think that this is actually probably the example of when it went too far, because when you have a black Stanley and everyone else is white, the narrative, it's not even a supposed narrative. It is a narrative, and so every time they make references to in the play, it's Polak, for example, but Polak in everybody's mind is you change the interchange with something else, and it has a different bite to it, and it's no longer her calling him a Polak,
Right, exactly, right. You're gonna get years of they did studies about this, the oral histories that were taken during President Roosevelt's time of slaves, and they went back and they studied it and they looked at it. And they looked at the families, African-American families, and how they're operating and feeling and thinking now. And a lot of it is like taking trace paper and putting it on top of, where we came from, because there's still things that are resonating throughout the society. And when you put a play on like that, don't tell me that people sitting in the audience, that's not gonna be, that's not something that's gonna come up or come out or occur to you while you're sitting there, even if it's unconscious.
No, but that casting was a choice.
Yeah.
That
was.
I seriously doubt that. Okay, well, he's the only guy that came out, so it was a choice to make a statement. But I would not have done that. No, I wouldn't have done that without having a statement to go with it as to why.
Right.
Like, if you're going to go that far, at least say, I am doing it for this reason. Right. And we should be able to find that reason somewhere.
Well, I believe that around this time, it was a lot of backlash. It was a lot of what we call the Hamilton backlash, because a lot of non-POC companies were like, oh, okay, you're going to take this narrative. Well, we're going to play around with it, because around this same time, I remember Kotori Hall, she had to write a letter, a cease and desist to a school because they decided to do On the Mountaintop.
Yes.
Like Martin Luther King.
Yes, I read that and I was like, ooh.
Yeah. And so it's like all of this was happening around the same time. So they were, saying, okay, if you're going to reclaim the narrative, let's make this an even playing field. But that's not really how it works. For example, you can have an all African American cast of Streetcar Named Desire, but I'll be damned if I'm sorry, but if you do an all white Color Purple. And it has been done, for example, in Germany, for example, and it just does not read well at all.
No, Mark and I have had this conversation about so-called non-traditional casting in the past when we were growing up. And the thing is that what's happening now, what's getting ready to happen, which I let him know, is that white actresses are running for their lives because of the fact that we've come out and basically put all the producers on the carpet about your bullshit. Now, sorry, but now they're running, like they're afraid, and they're the ones that feel mistreated and oppressed suddenly when this whole thing has been going, when they've had it their way the whole time. But I'm with all of you, and Mark included, because he's a traditionalist. I'll be damned if I see an all-white Ain't Misbehaving, or an all-white Dreamgirls, or an all-white Color Purple. That is our lane. We've had a conversation today about—
I didn't want to see a half-white Ain't Misbehaving or Dreamgirls.
Right. And the thing is that my lovely on the top left corner, I challenged her because she put white people in her production of Ain't, and I asked her why. And she told me why. And I said, okay, all right. And the way that I sat and watched it and the way it was perceived, she made it a neighborhood. That these 5 Black people were the center of it, but they also were whites that were in this particular neighborhood. Because
I think that can work, because I think it works.
The main numbers, they weren't crying black and blue, because I was afraid that's what she was going to do when she explained it to me. But then they were literally scene movers, or set the scene and made it a party in some of the numbers.
Yeah, and I think that works. Yeah, that works. When you do it that way, I think it works because of the direction that we're trying to take the world.
Right.
And so I do think there are some African American musicals and stories that we can take and maybe sprinkle it with 1 or 2 Caucasian actors conscientiously thinking to try and say, okay, this is the world. Now, there's some that should not be touched, right? A couple of you mentioned, right? But there's some of those old Roger and Hammerstein or that kind of thing. You can take those, and they've been traditionally Black, really, really hardcore, but there is some wiggle room in that Rogers and Hammerstein type of flavor where you can start trying to make it more multicultural. And I think the reason why it's important to do that is because of what Anya just said about the actors fearing for their lives. I think it's good, the Caucasian actors, actresses, it's good to make shows that where we can share kind of, or, reflect society in a way that, when you leave the theater, you're thinking, okay, this works. And even if it means us maybe sharing some of our canon,
right.
I think that's doable in order for the greater global good.
It's sharing the experience of the piece that you're talking about, because most of the shows in, speaking of Streetcar, like that particular show, it's about those relationships. It's not a white facing relationship. It's not a Black facing relationship. It's not a Latinx relationship, but it truly is just about the human cycle, the human life, the human being.
Which is
And-
amazing. Williams he's my favorite author, period. But all of his stuff is Southern Gothic, and because those themes are universal, like you said, it doesn't matter who you are, what you're bringing, that they are just human experiences, even though they're locked in the South in these cultures that he's written more than he thinks he intended to. And
Right.
like I said, there's no reason, except your case with the Black Stanley, which is
right, because you're dealing with mental health, you're dealing with played down sexuality that is so tense and so hot that you just want to rip your clothes off. It's so sweaty. Like every time I've gone to see any of these Tennessee Williams plays, it's always a haze in the theater, and it's really
You're
hot.
right.
Sweaty.
You're right.
Every time I've sat in the Kennedy Center, because they came, I got the subscription. It didn't help that I was a couple of months pregnant and just uncomfortable to sit and doing this every 5 minutes. But the haze it was hot. It felt sweaty and hot to me, but it also felt sexually tense.
Charged. Right.
Right. Like at any given moment, somebody's going to rip your clothes off and get down to business on this stage. That's how hot it was. And then the way that it plays out, like Tennessee Williams, his estate specifically says you cannot change any of the dialogue. So that other play was a choice. And they didn't change it. And it's a head scratcher because you want to root, you want to be supportive, but you're like, okay, I guess. Well, all right.
That's when you're not using your brain, well, I think it's like I said, it's good that somebody did it so that we can all talk about why it doesn't work. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, it's good that you have opportunities to take theater and experiment and try things, because that's how you realize, okay, well, that should never be done again. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, you see something, you're like, okay, that was interesting, but no, can we never do that again? But you don't know that until you try it.
So I'm going to ask you guys a question. With the theme of where this is, the overall theme of the play and where we are in society, what would you want, or how would you like it portrayed as either a castmate or a director? If any of you were to slap this down and decide that I'm going to do a BIPOC cast, and what would be the main thing that you want the audience to take away from it?
I think that's a
good question. Good question.
I think that's an interesting question, and it's actually pretty personal to me because for a couple reasons. So Stanley Kowalski is actually like very high on my bucket list roles, and recently in San Francisco here, I got very close to being able to do it because a company out here called the African American Shakespeare Company, they did it, and it was up between me and this one guy named Kari who ended up getting the job and he killed it. But so they did have it. So this is a picture of like the Stanley.
Oh, okay. So it was an all black cast?
It was all black cast. And it was really good. And so things that worked, we got to see in reading the reviews, things that worked and things that didn't work, for example. So they, as you said, the state said that you can't excise any of the dialogue.
Material, right,
But they actually, they took out any references to Polak, which for me was, I thought that was kind of problematic because, of course, I mean, there are Black Polish.
There are Black, hello.
They're Black.
That don't make no sense.
So, but because I guess the reason why they didn't want to do that is because I guess anytime you have someone BIPOC, but specifically a Black person, anytime you use any kind of racial epithet, it automatically just translates to something else in somebody else's mind. Like,
okay, that's where they were coming from with it.
you know, they never really said that, but I can only assume that that was why they would want to take those out, because anytime you just hear, you know, it just automatically has different connotations for them. So,
Sure.
and I know another thing that actually kind of I got into it with a reviewer. Actually, she wrote a review about the Blanche, and she was saying that she had like sloppy diction or something like that. But she really just did it like all the other Blanches. But I guess for this particular non-BIPOC reviewer, the diction was sloppy because she's giving this, you know, white Southern Belle accent that, you know, is probably not authentic, but still, you know, her diction wasn't any sloppier than any other.
Anybody else is. She just wanted to
drinking the whole show. Blanche is drunk the entire show.
Exactly.
She is never without a cocktail in her hand.
Exactly. She's slurring left and right, you know? So it's kind of like, so but I think that maybe to your question, Anya, maybe authenticating it to where, okay, if you're going to play a black, all black Streetcar Named Desire, because also, like you were saying, Mark, Tennessee Williams is my favorite playwright too, with August Wilson. I like to juxtapose the two, because his world is set in the North, and Tennessee's is set in the South, and they have character-driven things. But maybe having it more authentic to how a black New Orleans woman would have sounded in 1945, instead of just doing the standard, you know, Vivian Lee
version, right? Yeah, a couple of years ago, my girlfriend, who's a working actress in New York, she was like, I just saw a notice for something. And I was like, what did you see? And she said, they're doing a Streetcar, and they're setting it in Louisiana, and they're doing it they want all the cast to be Creole people.
Ooh.
Yeah. So I don't know. Of course, at the time I had a baby somewhere in there, and I was like, it was one of the babies or whatever, and I wasn't going to be able to, you know, of course I wasn't going to do it. I wasn't going to be able to do it, and I wasn't equity at the time, but, you know, she's like, I can't go for it. And that kind of like, I was like, well, why can't you go for it? So here comes our color issues then, because everybody they were casting, she said, well, it's just going to be Creole. And I said, well, why, you know, why should that exclude you? That shouldn't. And she said, well, it seems like the producers are trying to make it that way. So I don't know if that production ever made it to Broadway or not.
No.
Oh, you never saw? Yeah, you're like,
no, I'm looking it up now. No.
Yeah. I don't know, but they were trying to make that happen. And but she, you know, she was really interested in, you know, being a part of it. And I was sad because I was like, well, if anybody should be able to go and be a part of it and join it, it should be you. She's an amazing actress. And I think that sometimes people make the mistake of, you know, the same way as they would make the mistake of saying like it can only be done with just Caucasian people. It's like, okay, well, it can only be done. My idea of this is going to be this. But, you know, Creole people are all different kinds of colors, and it didn't have to be set just in that one niche. And so while it was an interesting idea for them to put forth, I really disliked the idea of having a whole situation again where it would be colorized. I really didn't like that.
Well, one of the most fascinating productions I've ever seen of it was just within the last couple of years. Not as my favorite, but it was one that just like took my breath away. It was the National Theatre in London. It was Miss X-Files, Gillian Anderson, and little Disney boy Ben Foster, all grown up as Stanley. I'm like, let me go see that. And they did one. They lifted it out of the presumption of taking it out of the 1940s period and made it contemporary. Didn't change a word. But the characters evolved because of that. Because there are no genteel Southern belles running around the face of the earth anymore. Women, and everybody was just a little coarser. So Blanche was coarser. Even Stella was coarser. But you know, cut off shorts, looking a mess at home. But the thing is it in a way brought a more powerful feeling to it, because Blanche is not hiding behind this faded Southern belle thing. She's a contemporary woman, but the themes are universal. So if it pertains to people today, 70 years after it was written, after it's where it's supposed to be set, why can't it be in another culture? I mean, like, so we have so many ethnic pockets in this country. There's no reason that these themes can't resound with the casting that you want to. And then, like I said, and this director was incredibly strong. I mean, you did not even question the fact the girlfriends, sending him around the corner to get lemon cokes from the drugstore. That was just a thing. But it was, like I said, by the end of that, because Blanche and everybody starts at a different place, her breakdown was unnerving. I'm sitting in a movie theater watching a taped version of this, shaking like I would be live. It's like, it is just one of the most fascinating ways that I've ever seen, taking something completely out of its element, not changing a word and not changing it, but applying another time, another culture's sensibilities to the same thing, and it still hits the same impact, hits the same peaks for every one of those characters. And I highly advise. They were showing it last year during the pandemic also, but it's a National Theatre Live in London, and it's a breathtaking production. I said the other thing they did, which was brilliant, was instead of acts, and this may have been part of it, but the scene changes were speed throughs of what the characters from scene 1 to 2 or 4 to 5 did, and most of it is just like clearing the table, doing the dishes, changing clothes. Stanley took a pee at one point, but what nobody remembers is the last 2 scenes. She gets raped off stage. Well, we watched that, and it was harrowing. And the lights, and Miss goes to the bathroom, takes a bath, falls apart in the tub, and then we watch the immersion where she comes out a broken woman in the last scene. But we see the entire progression, and it's just, I'm chilling just thinking about it. Gillian Anderson can do no.
I mean, she's like a creature from another.
You know what's so crazy? Because all I know her, or all I ever think of her, is the detective on
X-Files.
X-Files.
Yeah.
Marika tells me that she is giving life in The Crown. She's like,
she's Maggie
you
Thatcher.
got to see her.
You can't believe she's
I
Maggie
would say
Thatcher.
even not even just The Crown, where I thought she was maybe just. I thought she was very good in The Crown, but I also went back and watched Meryl Streep do it too. And I have to say that I really kind of prefer just a hair Meryl Streep's version, because she was a little less heavy-handed with some of the. It's a difference of kind of acting. I think Gillian is all about, I'm going to recreate and build this, and Meryl was more of like, okay, I'm going to be like a impression. So, I mean, there really isn't a right or wrong. I mean, I preferred Meryl's just a little bit, but Gillian was so great. But I would say, go look at her. If you really want to get an idea of how brilliant she is, and not just the, more of like a caricature of Margaret Thatcher, which she did very well. But you want to see some intricate acting from her. There's a television show where she is the detective chasing a serial killer. It's on the BBC. I'm going to get the name of it for you.
Okay.
It's brilliant. It's
I love an old British showgirl. So.
Oh my gosh, girl. You will be hooked. It was very good. She really, that's the first time, because I don't know her as Scully. I mean, I don't know all the X-Files.
Yeah.
I only know her as this detective, and she killed it in my. So then that set me up great for when I saw Thatcher. I was like, oh my gosh, okay, I get it.
So Jordan, I have a question for you.
Okay.
What was your feedback? Like, because you and myself and Mark, we love Tennessee Williams. This is he's our favorite. The three of us have that in common, where he's our favorite. And I hope to play one of
I love him too.
Okay. And it's one of those shows that I want to do in my life. It's on my bucket list. But for you, having that almost moment of being Stanley, what was that like for you? What was the feedback? Like, if you don't mind sharing, I just want to know. I want to know this.
Well, in real time. So prior to seeing the show, myself and a friend of mine who was almost Blanche and somebody else, we went to brunch, and they had bottomless mimosas, and it was at this one place where they gave us like the carafe after carafe after carafe, and so for some reason they decided not to drink them, but we had already paid for them, so like I ended up drinking 4 carafes of mimosas by myself. So needless to say, in real time, it was a little bit different, you know.
Yeah, of course.
But I mean, yeah. So I was just trying to, you know, because it's always also, I know the guy who played Stanley. I do know that I could kind of understand. I can understand some of the same reviewer. She said something like that his Stanley was novel because he was likable. But in my mind, I thought she was actually kind of throwing a little bit of shade there, but like he's a respected actor. So she
because likable is not what you're going for. Right.
Although I would say that about, interestingly enough, that is something I would have said about Blair Underwood.
Because he's so smooth.
I would never see him as a Stanley person.
Exactly. He
like,
just
never.
wasn't. He didn't even have the physicality. He doesn't even have
the guy in that production.
Wait a minute.
That guy.
I know him as
Wood Harris.
Stalky?
Wood Harris. So Wood Harris, his brother is the Steve Harris, who does a lot of those Tyler Perry. He was the husband in the Diary of a Mad Black Woman. That's his brother. He would have been more of a Stanley.
Right. When I look at that, he would have been a more. I would have switched.
Yeah, he's a little bit more, you know, because Blair is like class.
At all, but
you think of Blair as classy, but my feedback. So you know, I went back. I was drunk, and I was trying not to be. Very, very critical. So I tried to like not have very much feedback on it. But I will say that I can see how it's important to play it authentically and not like as everything else. If you're going to do a version, for example, I saw the all black cat on the hot tin roof as well, and that was a little bit different because you know you could see James Earl Jones and Felicia Rashad. They played Big Daddy, and you know.
Oh my goodness, that must have been amazing.
It was, and Anika Nonu Rose, she was Maggie.
Maggie,
and,
yeah.
You know, interesting. Again, another interesting. That's kind of an interesting choice for me.
Yeah.
I don't see her as that either.
You wouldn't, but she killed it. She just she'll surprise you. You know, she comes in.
I do believe that. I do. Believe
so I think that it's important. It's important to kind of take off the extra bells and whistles if one plays that, because going back to what you were saying, Mark, about the National Theater thing, I think the reason why it was so disturbing and why Ben Foster specifically was so disturbing is because we know his Stanley. You know, he's like a modern day somebody. He wasn't trying to play like some 40s version of it. He wasn't trying to play some 40s version of it. So it's like, this man is scary because we see him walking down the street. And so when that rape scene happened, for example, it's like, it wasn't stylistic. It was raw and real. And it was like you were watching the actual rape. So I think that the biggest feedback I can say is, like I was saying, that you have to, even if you're setting it in a certain time, even if you're not going to modernize it or anything, it's just important to make it not so stylistic if you're going to have a different aesthetic, because people are not as willing to buy into that.
I think
that's what I hear from a lot of my daughter. It's cheesy, it's fake. I guess you're right. It sounds that there's an entire new way to act, and we've got to bring that to these pieces and make them believable. You're right.
And there's a way to sound Southern, for example, without sounding Southern.
Right.
You know?
I learned that the hard way.
Yeah, haven't we all learned the hard way?
I am Southern, so I don't know.
British can sound Southern.
But you don't sound like that.
I can.
You can, of course. We all
couple
can.
of glasses of wine.
She just said it. She said, I can. She said, I can. She said, I can. She just said that.
At the theater.
But I would say that I agree with what you were saying. I know you had Demetrius too. I would agree 100% with what you're saying, is that and also with what Mark is saying, is that probably the best performances of the show always starts with the actors who are truly stripped back and able to project that, because again, it isn't about the costuming. It's about none of that. So if you have the right cast and they're in the right headspace, it will elevate. And I think it's true. People get caught up. Oh, this is Tennessee Williams. Okay. Oh, we have to have, we need somebody to come in and we need to have the right tablecloth and we need to have the costuming and the hair. And I mean, some actors, like I'm one of those type of actors, sometimes acting from the outside in, you get the hair, you get the costume, it really does help you. So I get that. But I think with Tennessee Williams, like you guys are saying, you have to be oh so careful to have these stripped back. So answering what Anya says, I really think you can do it with almost any race, okay? However, like Demetrius said, you can almost do any combination, but that one combination is probably not, that's one that you would probably steer away from right now. Like maybe in 20 years somebody can do that, but this society isn't elevated enough, in my opinion, to be able to do that. But you could, like, let's say Anya, you wanted to be Blanche, we could cast somebody Caucasian as Stella. We could, we could definitely mix it up, and it could definitely do that, or, I just think focusing on stylized things, like I said, when they did that Creole cast, I was like, okay, but that was so stylized, it's not gonna work. I mean, it could do well. It could work.
It didn't do well.
You found it?
It didn't do well.
Yeah, you know what I mean? I was excited by it because I was like, oh, this sounds cool. But then when I heard that they were like turning certain people away and stuff like that, that did not make me feel good. I'm like, well, what are you trying to do? Because if you're trying to bring the bayou, oh, hey, that's exciting.
Right.
But if you're like making some sort of stylized version that you think is going to be cool, that's not going to work, because it has to be stripped back, has to be real, and it has to be with actors who just want to break it all down and build it all up. But I really need a director too who's on the same page with you.
Yeah, and you kind of tipped into what I was going to say just a while ago. Even though, yes, I'm the one on this entire panel that knows nothing about the show, so I guess now I have to watch it.
Yes, you do.
Right. Regardless of how you're going to do it, it really starts with a director actually understanding the material and the content and the messaging. So many directors, would probably say, okay, like Mark, if you wanted to cast an all Black or a mixed cast of Streetcar, you do have insight into, and you also have support for that. So it's being able to tap into not only your actors and kind of what they bring to the table, but also have that support so that it's not just I'm directing this from my narrowed lens. So I think it's for directors to kind of take these pieces, though others have done it, to take this piece such as Streetcar and flip it on its end really starts with just being open to something different and letting the talent that comes through the door speak to you, because
trusting the talent, trusting
I think it's what Ricky always says this, and I think it's 100% true, and I think so many directors miss it, is tell the frickin' story. I mean, honestly,
I got that from Toby, but I do repeat it.
Well, but so many people, like, and I think especially with Tennessee Williams, and this is when for my training, when we were doing Tennessee Williams, so many people overthink it. And when you overthink Williams, you're done already. Because he wrote so clearly, specifically, his words are so great. You really, all you have to do is do his words and do justice to what he put out there. The minute you start trying to like make it over mechanical or over,
make everything a caricature versus a character.
Then to me you're dead in the water.
Right. It's kind of like don't get into the hype of the name of the author.
Yeah.
Don't get into the hype of the August Wilson. Don't get into the hype of the Tennessee Williams. Just do the work. Just let the script speak to yourself. My thing that I'm going to throw into you guys' lap is this. Because Ricky in 2020 took on the entire DMV in terms of like diversity and what that needed to look. Well, she did. I mean,
hell yeah,
better her than me, because
somebody might have been dead now. So come on.
Nah.
So, but she did that thing, and positive or negative, here's a question. We have all stood and said, okay, if you're going to diversify your season, don't automatically give me what you think I want to see. Like Mark and I had this conversation this morning because I don't care, but because Cockpit decided that their diversity consisted of you needed to do an all Black, basically our shows. That's not what we're saying. That's
a mistake, right?
That's the last thing we want. That's not what we're asking you to do. We're asking you to do this way.
What we're doing right now in this conversation, which is elevate and consider.
Elevate. So,
so
because old girl over here has taken on, how can these theater companies work something? How are they going to diversify their theaters with, say they want to do a streetcar? How are they going to diversify and make it where you're not pandering to certain masses?
Well, I would say the first thing, something that we've been working on out here in San Francisco, we've been calling people on that stuff a lot. And one thing we've been fighting for is, first of all, you need to have BIPOC casting directors.
You said it. I was going to say it next. I was going to say it next, and someone on the board.
Exactly, and somebody on the board, So that's how, that's how I've luckily been able to. I sit on the board of Marin Shakespeare Company now.
Okay.
They created it specifically for because they wanted some BIPOC representation, and that's where it starts. Because if you don't have somebody at the table that's going to say, like you're saying, like going to say, for example, because that's what a lot of the companies over here have been doing too. They've been putting Raisin in the Sun into the mix for next year, or and Dream Girl is on, which is always great. But then it's like, but it's also about, why not having a Black MC in cabaret, or that's what it's going to. That's the only way that it's going to take it. Blow it off of his head.
I've had this conversation with my husband for years, because Blacks moved to Europe because they weren't getting their due here.
Yeah.
Why not make Sally Bowles a Josephine Baker type-esque? She doesn't have to be Sally. It can be like a Josephine Baker.
Okay.
And she plays at the Kit Kat Club. And the MC's Black, and the you know what I mean?
I mean, it can be done.
It can be.
It really can be done. This is like, something when Ricky did she did the August Osage County, and she made it a completely mixed cast. And she didn't even start off, trying
didn't mean to. They
didn't
just
do it in the
showed
first
up
place. It's just
perfectly matched.
people came out, we did it, and you know what? It worked. It kind of worked, and I think it like, well, I'm biased because I was in the show, but 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 I think, I think people I spoke to were like, oh yeah, that worked. We should see more of stuff like that. More ethnicities, more shaking it up, more combinations, a show that's, I just use this as an example to a theater company who's searching about, what they're trying to do. And I said, look at this show called The Resident. Do any of you know The Resident?
I know of it.
Okay, yeah, it's on Fox. And the
the show.
Yes.
Yeah, and the cool thing that The Resident has done, it's set in Atlanta, and it had like 3 African American leads, 3 Caucasian leads. They introduced an Indian character as a lead, and they just introduced an Asian gay character and storylines. And every week I watch it and I'm impressed. And I mean, I had to sit back. I was like, what? 2 African American males who are on the show, and they're both surgeons. One's a brain surgeon. One's like a heart surgeon. And then they had a woman from Nigeria who was I'm so sad she just left the show. She was amazing, gorgeous, beautiful woman on the show. And all of them are doing their thing and having storylines and interacting. And guess what? The Caucasian characters aren't intimidated. They are not afraid to share the pie. The pie is being shared by all of them, and they look like a happy cast. Now, maybe they aren't. I don't know. But it's a beautiful, happy cast. And I was like, that is the future of theater. That show is what people should be doing. They should be including all these different ethnicities and people and pushing them and saying, here, we can have more than one ethnicity on the show at a time.
Because like, for instance, that's every day. Like, for instance, I work somewhere where it's like 50-50. And it's 50. I mean, we have a trans woman that works with us. We have tons of Black males. We have gay and Black and white males. We have females of all ethnicities, Latina X, Black women, white women, and no one blinks. The only people that blink are the customers that are like, what's going on? And this is every day for us. And we have everyday conversations.
But what ends up happening is that for the theatrical perspective, a lot of theater companies, though we can easily, and that's why we're having this conversation, talk about options and how you can do all this and how you can do all that. And a lot of theaters are still sitting with this mindset. And I'm hoping conversations like this and others will kind of break that away to where they're thinking, okay, kind of like what Jordan was saying was, so they're going to do Raisin in the Sun. And then, okay, we're going to do King and I. Oh, and then we're going to do Rent or Lacage. And it was like, if you do that, and there are theaters that I've had the conversation with them. I was like, I can't work with you because what you are doing why are you picking these shows was a question I asked. Why are you picking this set of shows? And they said, because we want everyone to have a show. So I said, so you're tokenizing all these.
You can't do that. Oh my gosh, that's the problem.
But so now you have to, my conversation with a lot of theaters when they're just like, okay, we want to do something that's very welcoming. So why don't we do like The Wiz? I was like, because you're tokenizing. Now, if Wiz was already on your schedule pre-pandemic and that was the one that got pushed off, okay, that's fine. I will look for that. I will look and say, okay, but if your only reason to pick this show is to give Blacks, or we're going to do In the Heights to give the Latinx community something to do, you're still creating a separation.
Well, and to me,
I want you to do Sound of Music and just cast however. Cast what walks in the door. Cast the talent.
I mean, and to me, it's like a false sense of it's like performative for the year. What's going to happen in the next year? And what message are you sending to the African American community in terms of like, you want people to trust you to come and do shows and to like, you want to build a family. You want to build a family of performers who, so that when you come up with your season, everybody's excited. They're like, hey, I know I'm going to audition and I'm going to be treated fairly. When you open up with after everything we've been through, and you open up with a Black show and you don't have any Black actors come out for the audition and you're surprised, it's because nobody wants to come and work for a company as an African American just to do a Black show where 5 minutes later you're going to be treated badly, or even treated badly while you're working on that show, doing something for them, making them look good. And then after it's over, you go back to, oh, okay, well, we're going to go back to, like you said, King and I, or whatever. No one wants to do that. Why don't you open your season with beautiful multiracial shows that show people we're really committed to change?
Yeah,
we
and
want to work
Streetcar,
together.
you can do that. You
What'd
can
you
do
say?
that with You can do that with Streetcar.
Yeah.
Streetcar is a great show where, now, are you going to have to do extra marketing to get the
Right.
people of color through the door? Yes. But you should also budget for that either way. A lot of companies are also picking the big name shows just to get people to show. We need to do the big money show. So everyone's going to be doing Mamma Mia. Okay, fine. Do Mamma Mia. Cast Mamma Mia up and down the hill. And please stop putting the only Black person in there as Rosie. Every time people are like, oh, Ricky, I want you to come be Rosie. No. Like, I would do it, but it's just, I'm not considered for any other role. Just Rosie.
What role do you want to do, Anya, if you do Streetcar?
Oh,
Blanche.
Okay, whatever one you do, I'm gonna come out and be Stella. I'm gonna come audition for it. And the reason why is because I love that play. I love both. I love all the characters. I'll come out and play Stanley. I don't care. I'll come out.
I would love to direct you both in it. I would love to direct you both in it. Throw that out.
There you go.
See, there it is. We're done. Now we just need we can do it right here in this, right here on this.
Also, what'd be really interesting is, I've seen all these combinations, but I think it would be really interesting also if Stanley was the only person that would not BIPOC, if they were going to do it like that, because I could actually see, how people,
we know.
Time and really, and I could see real dialogue, with, they wouldn't have to change a bit of dialogue, just get like an older woman or something, that whole like, I could just see that, but of course that would be the last combination you would expect to see.
My second,
and then see if you do. Yeah. Go ahead, Anya. I'm sorry.
No, my second favorite that I want to do is Virginia Woolf.
Ooh,
oh yes, girl. Yes.
Just
you would kill that.
I read the book.
God, Ricky, you are the cutest.
You're there. You're there. You're there. You're getting there.
Anya, you would kill that. You would kill that.
I just would like to just be a bitch and just ooh.
After bottle of wine or two, dinner at the Neville's is Virginia Woolf some nights, it's like.
Okay, nobody was gonna say that. No one was gonna say that.
We go way back.
I'm joking.
No, I'm not afraid. Not afraid.
So before
strong women.
Yeah.
There are so many. What I love, I'm in love with talent, and the possibilities of ruling somebody out because they're not the vision of what the audience wants to see. Love talent and see talent, and that's where you grow.
Right.
You would bring something to a Blanche I've never seen before, and you to a Stella. There are just individual, but not even as Black women, just as different, strong women. There's so much out there. I would love to see new variations and advance new variations on all these pieces. It's the words of these shows are so powerful, and it's just we need to share that wealth.
The thing is that we're veterans, and this last year itself has brought us exhaustion, where it's like we've done it for 20, 40 years, and we don't want to come out of the house to be insulted. Like, I'm not coming out of the house to be insulted. I'd rather stay home. You know,
that's exactly my point. I was trying to say,
Right.
I was just saying that.
I
I'm
don't want
like,
to be insulted.
you better be careful of what you are doing with your season. And I really, honest and truthfully, I'm just going to say, I'm going to break it down. I really think people are afraid. I really feel the fear. They're afraid of being pushed out. And
Right.
I think that is driving a lot of, I mean, I'm just going to say, call a spade a spade. I think a lot of like 100% Caucasian theater companies, they're afraid that if they make room for Caucasian actors, that they're going to get pushed out. And I think the important thing, you know, I know it's been a long road and everybody's tired and nobody wants to you know, African Americans are tired and we don't want to have to push anymore. But this is another burden. But if we really truly want everyone to get along and for all of us really to be together, we're going to have to understand that fear. And we're going to have to say, hey, no one's coming to take. We're coming to share what is rightfully been ours this whole time.
Mm-hmm.
It's rightfully our place here. And you don't have to be afraid because no one's taking. We're coming to share. But guess what? We're not going to say that that we're not going to be intimidated to say that we don't deserve to share. And I think that's what's changed, is that people are willing to stand up and say, hey, we don't have to do this anymore.
But on the community level, the thing is that what's been missing for years is that the whole, you say that you're a community theater.
Mm-hmm.
Heck yes, go for it, girl.
You've lost the community. You've somehow, some way, you forgot that there was community.
Yep.
And when you lost that, you lost a big part of why some of your shows have been successful, because they've been on the backs of Black people for years. And our backs are strong, but we are tired of it. And the other thing is too, when everything opens again and everybody decides, I guarantee you, because of this new path that we're making, people are not going to show up. People are not going to show up for auditions, because it was like, what the hell for? Because we've been doing this the whole time. You didn't notice me before, and now my phone rings. And my big thing, that's why the show that I'm getting ready to do in July, that for me was more the foot getting off my neck, and for me to start forgiving and listening, because the director listened to what I said to him about something that happened to me 7 years ago. And now he called me on the phone. It wasn't that he wanted a token white. He just wanted somebody that was going to take a chance with a show. He said, I know you'll take the chance that I need. Do you want to do this? I said, what is it? He told me what it was. I said, I don't know what it is, but I want to take a chance. I want to put myself out there and not have any idea, and let's fly with it. And I was excited because it was like, I now feel the forgiveness that I am giving him, and he is feeling the renewal or the renaissance of our relationship.
Yeah.
And that's important.
It is. So, it is amazing.
Yeah.
And that's what
it feels good. And it feels good. And I sit back and I go, and anyone that looks, because yes, never, we should all say never. And I said I would never. I did say I won't.
Yes, she did.
Never. And now I don't owe you an explanation on why. Because this is why. The why.
Girlfriend, it's your life. And if the right role and the right situation and you're being respected and given your due, anyone can change and make up and do it the right way. Because you know, there's years of hurt for everybody.
Right.
Lots of things.
Good about it. But somebody's got to make the first step, and somebody's got to make the next step. So I'm good with taking these, steps on these pebble stones and making this art.
That's right, because you were born with nothing but a pair of dice around your neck.
Oh, girl. Must you do that?
But anyway, because I don't want to keep anybody, but I want to ask a question as we kind of wrap up. So Anya asked several really amazing questions. But for me, as we end this, give me one, I want each of you to give me one statement of encouragement that you can give to either an actor that would want to do this piece or a director who is choosing to direct this piece. And I'm gonna start with Mark.
I would say you bring a unique experience to me. Find your uniqueness, find what you have. Don't look at what's been done in the past. Don't look at what people are expecting. Don't look at how things, what do you have in that part that nobody else does? And we all have something in us that nobody else does. Bring that to me. Let's explore that. Let's work with that and find, a new voice, a new way to tell the story, and watch it evolve. It could be something we don't even understand, but basically just look within yourself and bring it up. The words are there, the themes are there. You have experienced them in some way, no matter who you are. Bring your experience, bring your talent, bring your voice, and let's go from there.
Okay, Jordan.
The words are timeless. Trust the words, and if you do that, then everything else will follow.
Okay, Jeremy, darling.
I would just say do your homework, and really pick actors. Be intentional when you pick the actors, to play the parts. Really think about it. Think about where we are in life. I'm going to piggyback on what Mark said. Think about something inside of yourself that you can add to the story or you can bring out of the story, because something that's fresh and interesting and thoroughly thought out is, would be interesting for people to see.
And to take us on home, Anya.
Your soul is your talent, and don't be afraid to fail, because that's the whole learning process of all of this. To be ready to be kicked down, to be built back, like Jeremy keeps saying, break it down, and then build it back up. We've all done that when we've directed shows. We have put it together. Demetrius knows when I met him through Dreamgirls, and I said to the cast, I'm going to put this together, and then we're going to tear it apart. And then we're going to start from scene to scene to scene, and we're going to build these characters. Because I hate a musical that the people aren't acting. It's not about singing and dancing. These are real stories. So use your soul as your talent and be ready to fail, because the work comes with all of that.
So with that, I want to thank you all. Crap, now I'm going to go watch the show. Wow. No, you made it interesting for me. And that speaks volumes to what all of you brought to this conversation that I am hoping people get so much out of.
Well, you said Anya and Streetcar, and that was like, I was done. Like that.
Like literally.
Anya, Streetcar. Okay, I could not sign up fast enough.
Likewise.
I appreciate it. It's one of my favorites.
But with that,
you're one of my favorites.
You're one of my favorites. You're one of my favorites. You're
Ricky,
not
let
here.
me just
Why
take a
aren't you
second,
here?
because with all the going, we haven't had a chance to talk, but I want to personally thank you for helping me find the words to say the things that I needed to say and couldn't quite, when things were really going down. You gave me some words and some thoughts and some phrases that I could take to my board and put some of their words to rest. And I think that is invaluable. And I really want to thank you for that. There's a lot of companies that I think owe something to you. That we can.
You.
She did that thing.
Mm-hmm.
Rick, I would start with Brando and Lee. And when I tell you this, is because we all know her as Scarlett O'Hara, but when you see her as Blanche
Oh,
DuBois,
yes.
baby, it's something for your ass. I'm
It's
telling you right
well, there's a
now,
progression.
it is
You take her
something.
from Scarlett to
To that?
Blanche to the Roman Spring of Mrs. Stone, and
Yeah,
you
the
watch
Roman
that
Spring
Southern
Stone.
bitch just fall
Woo!
apart. That
I
is a
haven't seen
brilliant
that one
trilogy.
either.
Oh, she
It's
and Warren
so good.
Beatty.
She and
she
Warren
is-
Beatty are
Mhm.
Vivian Lee. Oh, but I would
Vivian Lee.
recommend there are 4 of them
I
on
think
tape.
I just need a weekend of catching up because I've never seen
There are 4 on
Gone
tape.
with the Wind.
Oh.
Ooh, on Hattie McDaniel's birthday. Blasphemous.
Hey.
You know
Hey.
what? This is really funny because my kids, my mom and I, we did a fire pit the other day. We were celebrating my son having graduated, and both of my kids have read Gone with the Wind, and they haven't seen the movie, but they read the book. And so we're talking about a 16-year-old.
It's this thick.
Yep.
Mhm.
It's like War and Peace. It's
Yeah,
this
it's
thick.
like, so they both
But I've
read
read
it.
War and Peace.
You like War
That's
and
a
Peace?
But I've seen Casablanca, so I'm not that far off.
My daughter finally asked me to show her Gone with the Wind this week after I've been begging my entire life, and she even came back to the house for part 2. After it's like we've accomplished something. But I say there are 4 versions on tape. Start with Vivian Lee. That's the benchmark.
Yeah.
Okay.
Miss Anne Margaret. It's on YouTube in segments. Watch that.
Yeah.
And Margaret, okay.
And Margaret is
Brilliant.
All right,
Brilliant.
guys, see
Who would
that
think
one?
Anne Margaret? It's on YouTube. It's free. Then the Jessica Lange, which I got for $6 from
Oh, I think I
Amazon.
saw that one. Yeah.
Okay.
And listen, if you find this National Theater one, which I think is on Broadway.com,
I got to see that one. That's
it's
the
brilliant.
one.
It's breathtaking.
Yeah.
It is everything the same and everything completely different.
It's
It will
sad,
rock.
everything
But
is-
if you follow that progression, you will watch that story from the 50s to the 80s to the 90s to today change with the actresses and the time. It's fun. It's
You know what? The thing that Mark, what you were saying about like the newest version of it,
Mhm.
you know, is like, I was just going to say about how my kids having read that book, Read and Gone with the Wind, and we were talking, their perspective of Gone with the Wind, their generation, it's so fascinating because my mom and I are like of a similar, we're like, oh yeah, you know, it hit us in a similar way. You talk to these kids and woo, it's so interesting. They were like,
I bet.
they were so down on the author. They were like, what was she thinking? And they hated Scarlett. I was
my
like,
daughter can't stand her. Why we watching 4 hours of this woman? She's horrible.
it was crazy. It's crazy, but it's just like you know, I'm like, wow, I was wounded because I'm like, you know, I don't hate her, but you know, like I look at her as kind of a survivor, but
Right.
that's why it's good to have the youth today too, also included in this, because I'm starting to realize there's so many things that I'm looking at now as a more of an older person. So it's also good to have that youth come in and give their perspective because it's very valuable. And I didn't really realize that until I started, like just recently, my kids are getting older now. We're having deeper conversations. I'm like, wow, you know, their perspective of the world and just how relationships work can give you insight into the characters of Tennessee Williams. You know,
So with that, I'm gonna call this one reclaimed. And thank you.
Thank you, Ricky. Thanks for having me.
thank you, Ricky, Anya.